All right, so welcome everyone to Meet the Mentor, and today's mentor features the wonderfully talented Brandy Saturley, and her new mentorship group is starting on Wednesday, November 15th, and there are still a few spots available, so there'll be a link at the bottom of this video, or you can go to mastrius.com and type in Brandy's name for Choose Your Mentor, and it will come on. My name is Carrie Crystal Schroeder, and I'm going to be hosting today, and I'm excited to be navigating for Brandy's group as well, and excited for what she can provide in mentorship. So I'll just give a short introduction for Brandy, and then you can have the floor, Brandy. She's an acclaimed Canadian contemporary painter and multidisciplinary visual artist known for her striking and colorful descriptions of Canadian landscapes, cultural icons, and sports figures. She paints Canadian pop art and is known as the iconic Canuck, which is the title of her first solo gallery exhibition. Brandy studied visual arts in London, England at the Royal College of Art and Visual Culture, Emily Carr University in Vancouver, and she's also a graduate of the Victoria Motion Picture School and began her art career working in the film industry. She's exhibited internationally. She's got public collections, including the Cole Art Collection in Quebec, Canadian Tire in Toronto, Canada Sports Hall of Fame, and Banff and Lake Louise Tourism. Her widely recognized painting Goalie's Mask, Red, White, and Dryden was shortlisted for an Olympic trophy in 2014. Her work's been featured in numerous publications, websites, blogs, including CBC Arts, Forbes, Art Canada, Hard House Review, and Sportsnet. Her self-published works and portfolio are on file with Artexte, Artexte in Montreal, and the National Gallery of Canada Library and Archives. She's the recipient of the Paul D. Fleck Fellowships in the Arts Endowments, Paul D. Fleck Fellowships in the Arts Endowment for her residency in the Leighton Studios at the Banff Centre for Arts and Creativity. She's just returned home to Vancouver Island after a month-long residency with the Pouch Cove Foundation, a private invitation-only residency in Newfoundland. She's a full-time self-representing artist, and her work is available through her website and exclusively through two commercial dealers, Willock and Saks in Banff, Alberta, and James Baird Gallery on Artsy. You can watch the short documentary film about when and how she became an artist, the iconic Canuck, which was released in 2020 on Vimeo. And I can put a link, or I can put it in the chat box. It's www.canackartist.com. And Brandy, you can take it away from here if you'd like.
Oh, you did really well with all that. That's a mouthful.
Well, there's a lot to say. Yeah. You've done a lot.
Well, I'm so happy to be here and sharing a little bit about what it is I hope to add to the Mastrius community and what you might get out of coming and joining my group. So what I'll do is just a brief run through of touch points of things that I'll cover in my mentorship group, a little background on me and my practice. So I will start with my beginnings. I grew up in Victoria, BC, and I grew up with a mother who was a painter, artist. My grandmother painted as well. So I grew up painting, making art, and being inspired by what the women in my family were doing. So that's kind of how I began my art career, in my opinion. It began early on. When I went to high school, I was pushed by my teachers to follow through with my art in college, which I never did. Instead, I decided to work and gain work experience and make art on the side. So I never made that traditional jump from school to college or university. One of the things I did was work in the publishing industry, which gave me a huge learning experience for things that I would do later on in my art career. I think all the work experience I had early on fed the art career. So I worked in publishing, I worked in film industry, I worked in interior design, all while painting on the side. So painting was always the ultimate goal, but there were other things that supported that goal early on. It was about 20 years ago, I transitioned to painting full-time and making it my full-time career. So my art pays for my life now, rather than me working a full-time job and then painting on the side. I'm now just making my art, which is great. For 20 years, it's been a journey of ups and downs, and there's busy times, there's not busy times. So yeah, it's been a fantastic journey. I'm getting to do what I love most in the world, and that's what we can all hope for, I think. One thing I wanted to touch on was daily studio practice. I think it's really important when you're transitioning from doing your art part-time to doing your art full-time, that you have a real well-honed studio practice, a schedule that you can adhere to, so that you give yourself breaks, you give yourself a reason for being in the studio. You get up in the morning, you have your coffee, you head down to your studio for a few hours, you come up for lunch, you go back down, you go out for a walk. But building a studio schedule, I found, has been really helpful in my life. So that would be one thing I would touch on in my mentorship group, your daily studio practice, and how organizing that in a way that suits your life will be beneficial to whatever it is you're doing or whatever it is your goals are. Another thing is homework and research. Something that I did early on, because I didn't take that traditional step into college right from high school, was I traveled whenever I had a chance. So if I had a chance to visit an artist somewhere doing a show who I admired and who I wanted to get to know, I would travel to their show. I would call them up, I would send them an email, I would make myself known, and I would go visit them. I'm grateful for many mentors that have shown me their studios over the years, and gave me steps early on that I could use to help me in my career. I think oftentimes we're afraid to reach out, or we're hesitant to reach out because we think someone's too busy, or they won't answer, or whatever it is. I always just reached out, and I've always been very fortunate to get a response. So I find that taking an interest in other people's work who have been at it longer than you, and who are doing things that you hope to do someday, are beneficial things early on, specifically when you're not going from into a traditional art transition, where you're going into like university or college, where there's a community already there. I kind of had to build my own community based on my interests and my goals in my career. It wasn't a community that was there for me. So yeah, so I'll touch on that. Homework and research, just researching the industry as well. I made a lot of trips to different art fairs just so I could get a sense of how work was being promoted, what level of work was being shown. Another opportunity to meet people in the arts industry. So one really close to us would be the Vancouver Art Fair, which is fairly new. I also went down to Seattle and did the the Seattle Art Show, which was very beneficial because it's on an international level, and you get a real sense of what's going on in the art world at large. And being that we're online, it's nice to get a sense of that online world, and you can at an international art fair like that.
Sorry, Brandy, did you have a booth there, or did you?
No, I went down as a buyer. That was the only way I could get in at that point. So I went in as a buyer, and I got some behind the scenes tours and opportunities that I wouldn't have had I gone down as an artist. So I got to see how the business functioned from behind the scenes right up to the front of house, if you will, like the booth. So yeah, I didn't actually exhibit in the fair. I was there to observe and study and think about where I wanted to head with my career, and talk to people. I went to a few seminars there as well, which I found very beneficial. Yeah, so seminars are great as well. Did the Las Vegas Art Expo as well, as a buyer. That was a really interesting experience as well, because again, it was on an international level, and I got an understanding of what was going on in the world and the online business before online really took off for art. Which brings me back to something else. Early on in my career, I worked for an internet service provider. And when I was there, I gained a lot of knowledge about computers and the internet and website design, which has proved so beneficial to my career, being that a lot of my stuff is done online. So yeah, the early days of the internet were part of my background, which at that time, I mean, I built my first website, I think 25 years ago, and I taught myself how to program it. I built the website. It was a terrible website. And it was my first art website, and it was before I had started full-time art or anything like that. I just wanted to jump in and give it a try. But nowadays, anybody can build a website. It's pretty easy, AI and all. And there's so many ways to promote yourself online these days. So it's really changed from the early days. So also from that, gurus and mentors. I think it's great to reach out and ask for advice and get tips from pros, and not just artists. Like, artists is one thing, and we can share certain ideas and tools and help motivate one another and help move our practices forward in a technical sense, perhaps. But I also feel that having mentors in other industries is really beneficial, because I'm an artist. My profession is painting and making art, and that's what I'm best at. But reaching out to people who have strengths in other areas, say in the business side of art, or in building crates, or hanging work in public institutions, or financial side of things. It's great to have all kinds of mentors in different areas. So yeah, building those gurus around you can really help support your business and your you in the times when things are tougher. So that's another thing I'd like to touch on when you come join up for my mentorship course. The other thing I wanted to talk about was short courses, because I didn't take a traditional journey, like I say, to being an artist, a professional artist. I took short courses. So I took a short course with the Royal College of Art in London, England, which was a phenomenal experience. It gave me a month in London, and I worked with 8 other artists from around the world. And I got to focus on what would help me with my art and my career and where I wanted to go, with experts that are the best in the world. So that was a wonderful opportunity. It was, like I say, a short course. The other course I took was with Emily Carr University. I took a short course on visual culture, because my work focuses on culture and landscape and Canadiana. I really wanted to get a sense of visual culture on the contemporary side of the art business. So doing a short course with Emily Carr was very informative, and also gave me access to experts in the field. So I took a short course with a community college here, and I took painting and sculpture, graphic design, all those things that would help support my journey, give me a bit more latitude in what I'm doing. Because the art you see, like the art you see behind me or the art you see on my website, is not necessarily the only art I make. And that's the same for any artist. Is we're constantly making things, but knowing what things should be presented and what things should be put aside for the future, or what things aren't right for the consistency of building your brand. These things can be helpful.
So not just producing a body of work, but curating a body of work. Is that
absolutely
right?
That's right, exactly right. Yes,
Okay.
curating, that's a great, curating the body of work. It's so important, and not just for show, but also for online presentation. Yeah. I guess the other thing I can touch on, or would like to touch on, is blogging and how that can be beneficial to your practice. Blogging is still the #1 way for you to build your brand online and to also educate your audience. So when you're trying to build a community for your artwork, build a following for your artwork, a group of collectors, you have to educate your audience. You have to educate your audience on who you are and what you do and why you do what you do and why they should pay attention. And I still think that blogging is the #1 way online to reach people all over the world and to really educate your audience in a larger way. So that's blogging. Social media. Social media is something that we all do now, I think, most of us anyway. It's still fairly new when it comes to promotion of artists, in that I think most people have no idea how to use it or what benefit it will have or whether or not their time spent is useful.
Kind of like the Wild West, isn't it? Still?
It's really, even for me, it's like the Wild West, because there's something new every day. And you have to decide where your time is best spent and what value you're getting out of that time. And while I think it's important to have a presence on, say, Instagram and Facebook and even LinkedIn, there's like multitudes of social media channels you can get involved in and go down a rabbit's hole and never come out. So also finding out which one's going to work best for you, with your time and your input into that area.
Yeah.
The other thing is, sorry, go ahead.
Brandy, I don't want to interrupt, but I'm getting a list of questions about all the things you're talking about.
Oh, sorry, I'm going really fast. I know.
Yes,
so
I meant to say, Lynn, please jump in. I'm sure Brandy would be happy for questions.
Having questions helps me move me along too.
Well, my first one was about the studio practice, and you were talking about a schedule. Is it necessary to actually be in the studio painting every day, or can you just have days where you do busy work? You don't have to paint every day.
Absolutely. I think it's good to give yourself a break from painting. It's also good for the work. So if you're struggling on a portion, or a portion's going really good and you want to really savor it and you don't want to rush through it, I think it's good to walk away and leave it. Particularly overnight, I find I solve a lot of problems in my dreams. But I do schedule weeks where I'm just painting, and then I schedule weeks where I'm just doing work on the computer and follow up with clients and shipping and blogging. So typically I try and do a week of painting and then a week of office work. Sometimes it doesn't work out that way. Sometimes I'm painting 3 weeks and then I'm doing a week of office work. But you're also always, every night or every early morning, you're answering emails. But to do the big office work, it's nice to give yourself a break, because the artist brain is so different than the business brain, and it can take some time to shift from one brain side to the other. So
that is so nice to hear, because you're right. There are two different sides to my brain. And if I'm doing financial work and computer work, I can paint. And if I'm painting,
exactly. Yeah, exactly right.
So it never occurred to do it by weeks instead of by hours in the day.
Yes, yeah. If you can manage it that way, for me, I found that it works really, really well. It gives me that space, because when you get into that flow space and you're so into a painting, you really don't want to come out of it. And doing business, like doing office work or doing financial or whatever, it takes you out of it, and then it changes what you're doing, I find. So
I have to agree. Okay, I have one other question. It's about the blog.
Yes.
It's kind of a personal directed at me question, but anyway, I have a very successful blog that I created for crafting.
Okay.
And it's still up and running, and it has a really good presence. And I've changed the name to Lynn's Art World, and I'd like to transition it into now my artist blog. Is that the right thing to do, or should I just close the crafting blog and start an artist blog? Do you have an opinion?
Well, I think it depends on what you're doing with your career. Like if you're expanding your art career, then yes, I would keep it. I would close the craft blog and keep it with your brand name, like your name as an artist.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's the answer I needed.
Okay. Yeah.
Hey, that's it. Those are the only two I have right now.
All right. Okay. Yeah, social media, parallel exposure. So exposing your work to other businesses as well, and in other business environments. I feel like sometimes, because we're artists, we feel like we can only present our art in art places or to our other artists or on art websites. I found great success in placing my art where there's fans of that thing. So if I have hockey paintings, I start sending it out to hockey blogs, hockey collectors, hockey magazines, that type of thing. If you're painting flowers, then maybe go to a botanical garden. Here we have the Butch Art Gardens, for example. Take your paintings to the Butch Art Gardens, connect with that community. So sort of taking, I think because I create a pan-Canadian body of work, and I have something that represents every province, really. Putting it in front of those areas is where you'll get the most bang for your buck, really. So not just art places, because people who buy luxury cars buy art. People who buy real estate buy art. So there's so many different venues other than just art venues where you can expand your market. The other thing I wanted to touch on was collaboration. Collaboration with other artists can be so valuable. I'm working on a collaboration with an artist right now where she lives in Calgary. I live here in Victoria. We are sending canvases back and forth. She begins the canvas, she sends it to me. I add something to it, I send it back to her. So we're in 2 provinces and we're painting mountains, but we're working on it together in a collaborative way, which has been really fun and a great way to explore new techniques. Collaborating with the public as well is something that I've done that has expanded my brand. I did something called the People of Canada Portrait Project, where I had Canadians send in selfies, and I would do an interview with them, and then I would paint them on an iconic Canadian location based on my interview with them. And that was a really valuable experience for me, and a fun experience to have in pushing my brand further, but also at the same time connecting to people and learning more about my country. So I think collaborations can be really interesting in growing your career.
Yeah.
Newsletters. I still write a newsletter. I do a monthly newsletter right now to a client list. I still find it valuable. It's good to keep people in the loop and let them know what you're up to. I know there's a lot of stuff coming in through email nowadays, especially with Black Friday and everything, but I still think a newsletter can be very beneficial to your business. Also personal emails to collectors. I don't, my serious collectors, I don't include them in my newsletter. I do personal emails to them. Just because it's a different experience for them. They've already bought, and we have a more personal connection. So, and then something that Carrie asked me about was on camera.
Yes, being new to that myself, it's something that is
and by
always.
the way, Carrie, I watched your one of your sessions on YouTube, and I think you do an excellent job. So, I think we're very hard on ourselves, and being on camera just comes from doing it. I mean, everything comes from doing it. So if you're painting all the time, you get really good at painting. If you're managing websites all the time, you get really good at that. If you're talking on Zoom or you're doing different presentations often, then you get used to that. The Zoom thing's very different for me. I haven't done much Zoom, but I do FaceTime, and I've done live presentations in galleries and artist talks, which I find more nerve-wracking than doing Zoom. Because I'm in my own space. Yeah, I'm in my own space here, so my comfort level is much more different than if I'm standing in a gallery and people are just, focused on me. So, so yeah, it comes with time. And, when I set something up, I make sure I light it properly. I make sure there's light on my face. I have a drink beside me. I take some deep breaths. I don't worry about what goes, I don't think about what I'm saying at the time. It's all a blur. So, and I try not to watch what I've done. So that's when you start critiquing yourself.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
And then the other thing is the balance point, like the question about like, do you give weeks for art and do you give weeks for business? And yeah, there is a balance point. There's a split as well. I find that my experience has been when you're early on with your career, for me, I wanted to make as much art as I could because I felt like I needed to catch up because I was working a job and only doing my art on the side. And so I felt like I needed to just paint every day and produce as much work as I could so I could work through all the bad stuff to get to the good stuff. So early on, I found that I spent probably 75% of my time painting and the other 25% doing business, which is tough because when you go from working a full-time job and you're paying for salon visits or, whatever it is, daily life, there is a shift that happens and your budget changes, especially early on, and you have to adjust your lifestyle until that builds up again. So there is a balance point. Now I would say it's probably more 50-50 or 60-40, and 60 being business and 40 being painting. Just because I paint so much. Now, even with a 60-40 split, I'm painting almost every day. Now, there are weeks I take the entire week off just to do business, but I still paint a lot, even though it's a 60-40 split. So I don't paint commissions, pretty rare that I paint commissions. I like to do what I like to do. So I find commissions challenging from the perspective of having to paint something that might not be what I'm in love with. So, but yeah, balance points are interesting because you do need to spend a lot of time. If you want to grow in the way that I wanted to grow, you really have to spend a lot of time promoting yourself, putting in that time on the website, reaching out to people, selling, building your collector base. Yeah, it's an all-encompassing full-time business that I love.
That's good.
Yeah.
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 So Brandy, do most of your income, is it from galleries or selling privately or teaching or?
It's from selling privately.
Okay, so mainly on like social media, or your collector, you have like a collector's list?
Yeah, mainly my collector base. New collectors will come in through my website from time to time. I signed on with my gallery in Banff, I think a year ago. So also from them as well. And then I just signed on with a new gallery in Newfoundland when I was there. So that's just started, but it's all been me. It's been private sales, either from in-person meetings with people or through the website.
I'd be really interested to know what you talk about at an in-person meeting to get someone to buy your art.
That is an interesting question. I just talk about my love of doing what I do. Like, I think someone, a collector, said it to me once, and he said he loved to be around people that were passionate about what they do. And not many people get the opportunity to pursue a career that they absolutely love, that they'd absolutely die if they weren't doing, that they put all their energy into. And I think passion is something that people are willing to invest in, and something that inspires them, makes them feel good. I know myself, I love being around people that are passionate about what they do, and I love hearing why they love what they do, and the things that they do. So really, you're not selling a painting. You're selling an investment in yourself. You're selling an investment in that passion. You know, like, there's hundreds of paintings of canoes out there, but why should someone buy your painting of canoe? And I think it comes down to, I mean, technical is certainly a part of it and the beauty of it. But beyond that, there's lots of beautiful canoe paintings out there. Why should you own a Brandy Saturley canoe painting? And I really do believe it comes down to that passion and the drive, and the client knowing that you're not going to go away tomorrow, you're going to stick around for a long time. So investing in your work is a great thing for them, and a great thing for me, because you know, the Canadian art community at large, or the world art community at large, needs to keep growing, and we need to keep putting our voices out there. And it's very important to have art in the world. So yeah, I mean, it's the story of why you do what you do, and why what you do is unique to you. That's what sells art, in my opinion.
Great answer. Okay, I'm filing all this away.
Yeah.
I'm not giving it all away, I hope, because I want you to come to my class.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Brandy, I know you touched a little bit on like where to find your people, right? Like, you know, to go to different areas of interest, but how do you find these people, really? That
You mean in a sense of promoting myself in parallel areas? Is that what you're talking about?
like say that would be interested in your unique work, right? Like your specific work. Like you're saying, okay, if you do your floral, you might go to the Botanic Garden, or you know, if it's like Canadiana, you know, you might go to. So do you send a blog to a certain like magazine, or like different groups, or you know?
I reach out in many different ways. It really depends on how I feel about contacting the person directly. So if I feel like there's someone who's got a really busy schedule, I might reach out first through email. But really, all my research is done on Google, or on Facebook, or on Twitter. or on Instagram. So if I see someone interested in the work or liking the work, I'll reach out to them in a private message. If I have, for example, if I have work about hockey, I'll reach out to the Hockey Hall of Fame and say, hey, I'd love to hang my work in your hall for a while. I'd like to do something with you with the Canada Sports Hall of Fame. They reached out to me and wanted me to make a donation for their fundraiser. And we talked about it for a while. And what it turned out to be was me coming there and painting on site for 2 weeks as an artist, as the first artist in residence, and engaging with the public there. So I think it just begins from reaching out via email, or also I've gone to golf games. Like I went to a golf tournament, was on a team with 3 other people, and they asked me what I did. So I got to talk about my art. And then, you know, a few weeks later, they reached out and wanted to buy work from me. So I think, you know, not necessarily going to a gallery to show up and talk about your art, but maybe going to do something that you love doing that's not art, and talking about your art, like whether it's a hiking community or an interior design group or a women's business group, or I mean, it just depends on, I think if you stick with your interests and go down that path, there'll be a natural thing that happens with your art and building a community in those areas. It's just about having the courage to reach out to anybody, anytime, anywhere, whether it be by email or phone, or sending a blog post that you've made, or showing up in person to an event. It's about having the courage to do it. Because 9 times out of 10, I've found that if you have the courage to reach out, you'll get an answer. It may not be the answer you want, but it opens the door. So.
Yeah. Great, thanks.
Good point. When you were talking about gurus in other areas, Brandy, like, you know, in finance or in hanging, are those people, like, I would just think, oh, I need to pay someone to do that. But is there another way you found, like, are people willing to give some information sometimes?
Yeah, I find in most cases people are willing to share if you're interested in their business. So if you're interested in learning, they're happy to share or support or help. Certainly I got into a point where I pay the guy to build my crates that I ship my artwork in. I pay someone to stretch my paintings for me because I just don't have the time to do it. And I don't have a huge space, so I'd rather pay someone to do it. So, but certainly early on, like when the budget was small, I reached out to so many people and I offered to do something like I think I'm pretty good at writing blog posts, and I'm pretty good at writing in general. So I would reach out and say, I'd like to write an interview with this artist that I've been wanting to talk to. So if I contact them and write an interview, will you post it on your website? And 9 times out of 10, that would happen. And that was the way I built a mentor list for myself, was reaching out to them and asking if I could do an interview with them, and then writing something and then sending it to somewhere where it would be online. So
that's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, early on for me, it was good. Now I get paid to do stuff like that. But yeah, when you're starting out, you have to expect that there are going to be things that you do on your own time and you don't get paid for, but it will benefit you in the long run.
Yeah. Do you find, do you think artist block is still a big thing? That did you ever have to deal with that especially when you were starting out?
I didn't, I've never dealt with artist block. I just do it. Like, whether it's good or bad, I don't care. I just do it. I need to get it out. It's therapeutic to a degree. So, I find the best way to work through anything in my life is to paint. So I haven't experienced artist block. I did experience burnout pretty heavily during the pandemic, which landed me in hospital. for a month.
Oh my goodness.
Because I was doing so much, and I feel like the isolation was so huge at that time.
Yeah.
And I completely burned myself out and went to hospital for a month. And then at the end of the month, I was supposed to go to the bounce center and do residency, and I couldn't. And they actually held it for me to the following year.
Oh, that
which
was nice.
which
Yeah.
was amazing.
Well, that speaks highly of you too, that they did that. Yeah.
Yeah, I was so appreciative because I mean, I'd never experienced anything like that in my life, and I'm certain that the pandemic had a huge influence on that experience. So, so what I've learned from that is to really take care of my health, because I am very driven when it comes to my art, and I don't like to give up, and I like to be doing everything all at once. And I've learned to take those moments more, and reflect on things more, and enjoy the ride a little bit more than I, take time for enjoyment. So those things are very important. Yeah.
Those are probably the same things that help with artist block too, I would assume, just.
Yeah. It's interesting because when I was in the hospital, I was drawing every day. So I did 100 drawings while I was in the hospital.
Wow.
But it's what helped heal me, and it's also what got me through. I mean, it got me through any kind of block I was having from burnout. It carried me through until I was ready to paint again. It was the longest period I'd gone without painting. So, but the drawing was nice because I'm always painting. So it was nice to just draw and focus on drawing whatever it was in the moment.
Yeah.
So, like daily, I go out for a walk every day for an hour. On weekends, I go hiking with my camera. Those things also help move the work forward and keep me healthy.
Yeah. Sure. I've heard so many people say that it seems to be one of the tried and true things, doesn't it? Just to be outside and go for a daily walk, or just
it's so great. It's so great. So I think letting it flow is a huge thing in art, because I think oftentimes we'll not do something because we feel like we can't, or it won't be successful, or it'll be ugly, or it'll be wasted canvas or something. But I think to have times where you have no structure in the studio and you just paint for the love of painting, or you make for the love of making, is still really important. Like, I think taking time to play with your art is really important. It'll be things that you'll never sell or you'll never show, but it's just as important as the things that you make for those reasons. So I find that painting with my niece and nephew sometimes really frees me up and reminds me to have that child mindset of just being free.
Yes. Yeah.
So Brandy, do you ever have to deal with self-doubt or?
Oh, sure. Imposter syndrome. I have I've had a pretty high level of that for most of my career. It wasn't until the last few years that that's kind of dissipated to a large degree. I'm certainly never not nervous about doing new things, but I don't let it stop me from doing new things. Of course I doubt myself. I think if you care about what you're doing, you doubt yourself sometimes. It's what keeps you on that path of moving forward. But that's just part of it. You just have to realize that, you're doing what you're doing, and as long as you're focused on it, and as long as you put those blinders on and you keep going forward, there's nothing that's going to stop you. So, I mean, self-doubt is, if you're in any art business or acting or filmmaking or writing, it's a huge part of it. And that imposter syndrome, I think it eventually dissipates, but it's always kind of like this little shadow that hangs in the background.
Yeah, because I mean, sometimes you may feel that like all the work you're producing is terrible, right?
Sure.
big stretch of time. Like, so, I mean, how would you, you know, deal with that? Maybe ask for advice or talk to other people or.
I think it's really helpful to have at least one person in your life that is your biggest fan. I really do, because I think it helps you get through those moments where maybe the work's not great, or maybe you're struggling with putting it out. But as long as you have that one, like you need one of each. You need a person that's your biggest fan, and you need a person who's your biggest critic. And usually that's yourself. Like for me, for me, that's me.
The worst
But
one.
it's like the angel and the devil scenario, right? So my husband is my biggest fan, and I'm grateful for that. He can also be pretty much a pretty good critic too. But yeah, when you're having those tough times, you've got to have someone who's beside you, no matter what you're producing, that helps you move through those times, because it can be hard to do it on your own. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point.
And you mentioned, oh, sorry.
No, you go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, because you touched on a little bit about a donation. You know, what do you think about donating your work?
Oh, donating my work.
Mm-hmm.
That really depends. So I find that donating your work to an art-centric event is a good thing. So if it's a fundraiser for an art museum or something to do with art, I think that's great, because then you're auctioning your work into something that you have a built-in group of people who love art and who are collectors of art. And it will support an arts business, so like a museum or an organization or something. I found that if I donate outside of that, it has to be very specific as to what I might donate. So if it's a cause I really, really believe in, I'll do it. I often will collaborate with teachers in schools and send imagery of my work for them to work with in class, posters and things like that. I have supported organizations who have supported me back as well. But I'm very careful with donations, because everybody asks for donations all the time, and it isn't necessarily going to benefit your business, particularly when you're early on and they can buy your painting for $20 or something at a donated event. You don't know how much it's going to sell for. You don't know what people are paying for it. So yeah, I mean, I think you have to play it by ear and assess whether it's really aligns with your goals and the things you'd like to support. So that would be my advice on donations. But I don't donate a ton. Like I'll pick one organization every year and I'll support that organization. I think that's a nice way to move things around. So yeah.
Yeah.
Good advice.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So I guess in closing, what I'd like to say is that I really, with this mentorship group, it opens a new door for me. I've only mentored people one-on-one. So this would be the first time I would be doing a group scenario, which would be really interesting for me and a new challenge for me. And what I want to do is help people be more successful, like help artists come along in their journey, whether it be them wanting to take their art full time, or them just wanting to focus more on their art, or them wanting to focus on something specific in regards to marketing or building a brand. There are a number of areas where I can be helpful, and I love helping other artists because I got so much help early on. So that's my reason for being here.
That's great.
Wow. That's wonderful.
One last question. How old were you when you made the leap from full-time, like from part-time artist to full-time artist?
I was about 35.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because you are very young to me.
Oh,
yeah. Me too. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's because I love what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was pretty brave thing when you didn't have a gallery at the time, or you were as you say, you're a self-representing artist, which is something that's kind of unique, I think, for a full-time artist. And
Yes, it is. Yeah, I really, I didn't have a community. I didn't start with a community, so I built my own.
yeah, and I think that will be very helpful as a mentor. I'm really looking forward to all the things that you're going to be teaching us and helping us with. So that's
Well,
wonderful,
I'm
Brandy.
looking forward to it. I think it's exciting and it'll be a new challenge for me.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us, Lynn and Gloria. And this will be up online in a few days, I suspect. And yeah, we'll be looking forward to seeing people for the launch of your group.
Yes.
Thanks, Brandy, for all that wonderful information.
Oh, thank you. Thanks everyone for coming.
It was wonderful. Learned so much.
Nice
Yeah.
meeting you.
Bye.
Yeah. Take care.
Take
Bye.
care.
Thank
Bye.
you.